Hello and welcome to Success Formulas.
How to memorize a speech. 11 tips to memorize a speech quickly, word for word. Did you know that the fear of public speaking is one of the most common fears? Giving a speech can surely be a stressful event. Memorizing it is hardly an easier task, especially if you have stage fright and you are anxious before actually giving the speech. But the truth is that the memorization of a speech doesn't have to be that hard. That is, if you know how to do it. And it will benefit you in more than one way. If you don't have to look at your notes, you will feel more confident and seem more competent, not to mention a greater chance to create a connection with the audience. Here are some tips for you to try and memorize your next speech word for word. Number 1. Write out your speech. The first step in the memorization of your speech is usually to write it out. Some people like to write just the outline, but if your goal is word-for-word memorization, try writing the whole speech out. Whatever you choose, simply take a piece of paper and a pen and write out the entire speech. If the speech is relatively short, you might even try writing it out multiple times. This step is typically the hardest because it's not only the first step, but it also involves the initial creation of the speech. Nevertheless, it is very important to write your speech out because it gives your brain the chance to actively work through it in a different way than it does when you are speaking. Number 2. Rehearse your speech. Once you are done writing out your speech, you can start rehearsing it. There can be no memorization without rehearsing and practicing giving a speech, unless you have an eidetic memory. It is good to start by simply reading what you have written. As you repeat that, you will remember more and more, and soon you will be able to rehearse whole parts without looking at your speech in written form. You can also try rehearsing in front of a friend or family member to make the situation a little bit more realistic. People often think that they have memorized their speech and that they are well rehearsed until they try giving it in front of someone. Anxiety and stage fright can make us forget what we memorized, but there is nothing that rehearsing and preparation can't solve. Number 3. Record yourself giving the speech. Another way to memorize your speech through repetition that is especially useful when you have no one around to practice with is by recording yourself giving the speech. You can use it to save time and listen to the recording while you are doing other things to help remember the whole speech. One additional benefit from the recording is that it allows you to watch the recording and analyze your speech and body language. Video allows you to see how comfortable you look while giving the speech. Watching a recording of yourself practicing giving the speech can provide instant insight into where you may struggle with making a point or expressing yourself the right way. All of this makes you repeat your speech time after time, which enhances the memorization process. Number 4. Memorize the main parts first. Some experts argue that the crucial advice when it comes to memorizing a speech is to memorize it hierarchically. This means that you should start with the big chunks or ideas, then specific paragraphs, phrases, and finally, words. So the place you would want to start is big chunks of your speech, the general points and ideas that you want to deliver. Think of them as the chapters in a book. You can write them down or associate them with something memorable to you, pictures, people, events, etc. Spend a few minutes doing this and then try giving your speech. Focus on those main ideas and points, and don't worry whether you get the exact delivery right. That will come later. Number 5. Then small details. When you have successfully memorized the crucial points of your speech, you can move on to smaller details. You already know the ideas that you are discussing, so you can easily associate sentences and words with them and recall them correctly while giving the speech. After remembering specific topics, you can start remembering specific paragraphs, phrases, and finally, specific words. You can also try quizzing yourself both in order to check how much you've memorized and to improve the memorization process. You can ask yourself questions about specific phrases and sentences, or in general about your crucial points that you have memorized in the previous step. This can take a bit more work than memorizing bigger chunks. It could be useful to do a mixture of memorizing and actually practicing the speech. Number 6. Chunk your speech. Chunking is another neat memorization trick. Instead of trying to memorize every word of your whole speech, try dividing it into chunks, smaller parts of it that consist of 2 or 3 sentences. After dividing, read the first chunk aloud. Then it is time for recalling. Try to say the chunk without looking at the written speech. Check if you got this right by reading again or listening to the recorded one. Repeat this until you get the first chunk down. Then go on to the next chunk of material, but include the first chunk in the recalling part of the process. So by memorizing each new chunk, you will actually be repeating all of the previous ones. Continue doing so until you can say the entire speech, word for word. This may sound like a lot of work, but it is actually very effective, and it can help you memorize your speech in a short time. Number 7. Practice recalling, not only repeating. This is the crucial concept of any type of memorization. When you need to memorize something, especially word for word, think about how to help your brain practice recalling the information, not merely repeating it by reading the speech over and over again. Your goal is to quickly get the information into your short-term memory so that you can start practicing the recall process and move the information into long-term memory. As you could have already figured out, there is little benefit from simple repetition of your speech, either by reading it or listening to a recorded version multiple times. You need to actively work on it to be able to recall it when the time comes. So, instead of reading it once more, try to actively remember the speech without looking at it. In the next few tips, you will find ways to improve the recalling process. Number 8. Visualize your speech. If you are a visual type of learner, then this tip is great for you. In order to memorize your speech by visualization, you'll need to create a mental image of parts of your speech so you could remember those sentences or specific words easily when giving the speech. Create detailed pictures with personal meaning to you to facilitate the recalling process. For example, if you are talking about medical trials fundraising, you can imagine a $sign in a lab coat and with a stethoscope. To make the visualization process even better, you can make use of an ancient mnemonic, Memory Palace. The basic idea is to use your imagination to place the mental images you created in a room that you are very familiar with. So for instance, you can imagine walking into your bedroom and seeing a $sign in a lab coat and with a stethoscope on your bed. Then place other mental images throughout the room and imagine walking around and seeing those things you have imagined. Number 9. Write down the first letter of each word. This one may seem strange to you, but give it a try. You should start by writing your speech down and reading it aloud. Then try writing only the first letter of each word of your speech. Now try to recall your whole speech by looking at these letters. The idea behind this trick is to give your brain just enough help and clues that it needs to recall certain material that you learned. You will probably be able to recall a lot of your speech on the first try already. If you stumble at some letter and don't manage to remember the word behind it, go back a few letters and try to see if you can figure it out by the sense of the previous words. If you have to consult the original, make note of what confused you and start over. Remember, you are trying to help your brain find the right connections. Number 10. Chain way of memorizing. This one is similar to chunking, but without actually making the chunks out of your speech. It is considered to be one of the fastest and most efficient ways of memorizing texts. It originally was the old Hindu method that was used for remembering long religious texts. Naturally, you would have to start by reading your speech, so you should read the first sentence, repeat it several times, and once you're sure that you've remembered it, go to the next one. Now, repeat the first and the second line together. Keep repeating until you are sure that you have memorized them, and then go on to the third line. Repeat the process again, first to third line, and when you are done, move forward. This chain way can help you memorize your speech in practically no time. Number 11. The journey method. This method is similar to Memory Palace, but the accent is on a journey, not a simple location, and you don't have to use mental images. Keywords are enough. Divide your speech into smaller bits and find strong keywords that will represent each part and that you will easily memorize. Give each keyword a specific position in a place that you are familiar with. For example, your bedroom can have the first keyword in the script. Your bathroom can have the second, kitchen third, and so on. This way, each time you are in that room, you will remember a certain part of the speech. Form a route through the place and go through your speech's main points every time you step into the room, and remember those mind images connected to the trigger words. Try this method and take a journey through your speech. The skill and art of giving speeches is something you learn and requires some work. But with some or all of these tips, at least you will master the memorization of your speech and give yourself a big head start. Before you leave, our team will be very happy if you can give this video a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you can be notified every time we upload a new video. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next video.